When you talk about Jared Goff, make sure you mention that he's a Super Bowl appearer. Well, let's look at the Detroit Lions, the best team in the NFC this year. The odds-on favorite for the NFC North, and what, in my opinion, could have the best record in football this year. We look at this offensive line, my opinion, top 5 offensive line in the league. And
Maybe
then
top 2.
you look, maybe top 2, yeah. And then you look at the wide receiver core. I think they have a top 3 to 4 wide receiver core in the league with Reynolds, Marvin Jones, St. Brown, and then you're getting Jamison Williams back after week 4.
Oh, I thought it was 8.
And
I thought
then
he had
you look.
8 games. Is it only 4?
Was it 8? I thought it was
I think
4.
It's 8.
Oh, if it's 8, then you're getting back week 9. Either way, you have plenty enough talent there until he gets back. And then you look at the running back room. I think David Montgomery is a very underrated signing for him, but I think Jahmyr Gibbs is the absolute elite of the elite for skill positions in this rookie class. I'm on record saying that I think Jahmyr Gibbs will have 2,000 scrimmage yards this year, so 1,400 yards rushing, 600 yards receiving. I think he has well over double-digit touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised if he has 15-plus rushing and receiving combined. I think he's going to have an absolute monster season behind that O-line. I think Jared Goff is going to continue to be good, not great. I think he puts up probably 4,400 yards-ish passing the ball with a 2,000-yard running back, and maybe even David Montgomery is still in about 6 to 8 rushing touchdowns on top of that. I think this is going to be an explosive, high-scoring offense with a re-energized defense at the same time. Aidan Hutchinson coming into year 2. I absolutely love this team. I love their schedule. I love their draft. I love what they've added on the back end for their corners and safeties. I love everything about this team. I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Okay. So on offense, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, but this is a coaching staff that I'm scared is going to give David Montgomery way more touches than he deserves. He's been one of the least efficient backs in the NFL the last 3 years. He doesn't have the breakaway speed that you need when you're breaking tackles like that. He breaks a lot of tackles, and it's really fun and cool to watch, but it doesn't actually get you very far. It doesn't get you much more.
See, you're forgetting about the run he had against Green Bay.
Oh, it was great. It was incredible, but it doesn't happen very much that he gets yards like that after the contact.
The funny thing about that is he got caught on the 2 and didn't score.
Oh, okay.
But
I thought you were talking about the one where he broke 4 tackles.
No, he broke 4 tackles with 77 yards.
Okay, that's a different one. I had a different one in my head.
But I'm not too worried about that because I think DeAndre Swift had injury issues, and I think Jamal Williams was a proven commodity in the league. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to take over this backfield, and David Montgomery is going to be there solely to give him a break. I don't think it's everybody's looking at this situation like, oh, David Montgomery's gonna play the Jamal Williams role. The only reason why Jamal Williams played the role that he did is because he's a 10-year veteran and has 3 fumbles in his entire career and is an absolute beast on the goal line compared to a third-year DeAndre Swift who couldn't stay healthy for more than 4 weeks at a time. I love DeAndre Swift, but if you watched that offense last year, DeAndre Swift was an absolute monster, and the only reason why Jamal Williams had as big a role as he did is because he couldn't stay healthy. So,
yeah, no, I mean that makes sense. I don't believe it till I see it. That's where I'm at with it. It might. I hope that one of my notes here is Gibbs is electric, should be the primary running back, but will he be? That's a real question for me.
I think he will be.
I think he should be. But I'm worried that he's going to be pigeonholed into more of a receiver back role, more of a weapon, multi-tool weapon role. where it's like split, like Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram was, and I just don't think Monty's Mark Ingram, and I think that's gonna not be good if that's what they decide to do. I
Yeah,
love Monty,
I don't think that's the case,
and I
but
love Monty. Don't get me wrong; he took a lot of hits for the Bears. He plowed through a lot of tackles and left his heart on the field, but that doesn't make him faster than he is. Um,
right. So what about? Let me say one more thing about this team. They got rid of.
I got a lot more to say about this team.
They got rid of TJ Hawkinson last season, halfway through the season, to the Minnesota Vikings. And then they go out and get Laporta. I love this tight end that they brought in. He is one of my favorite tight ends in this draft. I think he fits in perfectly in this offense, where he's going to be quite possibly the fifth or sixth option in a lot of scenarios.
I mean,
I think this offense is the greatest show on turf.
We'll see. I mean, so Ben Johnson, I mean, he was outstanding for them last year, calling the offense. Like the way that they're it's not the greatest show on turf because everything is dictated by the run game for them. But it's like I understand what you're saying though, like the innovation aspect of it, right? Like they are the most versatile run game in the NFL. They throw so many different gap concepts on at you, and they can still succeed with zone concepts. And that's how they've gotten so much out of Goff. They have made it easier for him to be able to use play action, which by far his play action stats versus his non-play action stats are a giant gap. There's a giant gap between the two. He had the most play action touchdowns in the NFL last year, and a big part of that is because
when you talk about Jared Goff, make sure you mention that he's a Super Bowl appearer.
All right, so there's a big difference between play action and non-play action for Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff. And Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff, he was able, the way Ben Johnson structured all this, he was able to get Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff chances at play action looks and play action concepts, but actually having to turn his back. And so he could see when safeties rotated. Because for Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff, his biggest issue with the Rams, that whole downfall that Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff had, was really about the late rotation to safeties and defensive backs when Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff's back was turned out of under center play action. And the Detroit Lions have been so effective at, one, running out of shotgun, two, running gap concepts even under center, even when under center, that force the defenses to bring an extra man up on the line, that they're single high. They're not rotating like they used to, like they were with the two high safeties. They can't afford to keep two high safeties against Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff because this run game is too good. So that has created us looking at Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff like Super Bowl year Jared Goff again. Like,
there we go.
And I'm really curious to see how defensive coordinators counter this, because this was new last year. This was like brand new to the league. This was not stuff that was really a lot of tape on. So D coordinators have had a whole offseason to watch tape on Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff.
Here we go.
And think through how they can force him into doing the things that the Lions don't want Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff to be doing. So I'm really curious to see how that counter comes in and how Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff does with it and how Ben Johnson has answers for him. Did I do well there?
Absolutely. Yeah, putting some respect on the man's name finally. Like if you want to sit here and tell me Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff is trash, like tell me who you're a fan of and how many Super Bowls your quarterback has attended, because it's probably less than Super Bowl appearer Jared Goff.
Kirk Cousins goes to the Super Bowl every year.
But when I look at this team, you look at this team from top to bottom. You look at the division. You look at this defense. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I think, was absolutely huge addition here. And then you look at the defensive line. Aidan Hutchinson's coming into year 2 right here. Had a monster season last year. And then you look at some of the guys they added. They added a off-the-ball linebacker at 18, which a lot of people looked at this Detroit Lions team going into the draft. They're like, oh, they have 2 high-round picks. What are they going to do? They went and picked a running back and off-the-ball linebacker. A lot of people might look at that and say, "What wasted? What a waste!" But I look at this like I look at the 2014 Cowboys, to where you're like, we have everything that we want and we're in win now mode. And obviously it didn't work out for the 2014 Cowboys. They just had the best season they've had in 25 years. And if they would have played Tony Romo in the playoffs, they would have been a Super Bowl team, but that's neither here nor there. And they took two guys they took guys that would help them now rather than building for the future. And I think that's what the Detroit Lions did in this draft. They took two guys that could immediately step in and make an immediate impact on this team. And maybe 5 or 6 years down the road, you're going to look back on this draft and be like, wow, they took a linebacker and a running back at 12 and 18 with that team. But yeah, sometimes you just got to swing for the fences and go for broke. And I think this team is built to win now. And I think those are perfect picks given the situation.
Before we get too deep on the defense, can I rip off some thoughts on wide receiver, tight end, O-line?
Yeah, so wide receivers, top 5 in the league.
I mean, it might be. Amon-Ra St. Brown is awesome. 7th in yards per route run last year. But most of that was like 60% of his snaps did come in the slot. He did produce enough outside where you're like, okay, he can play both. But I'm not sure he's your X receiver. He's your outside ball winner either, which is where a guy like Marvin Jones comes in big. Yeah. But Marvin Jones is 33 years old now, and he had some real drop-off statistically last year.
You're almost 33.
Yeah.
Are you telling me you can't run routes in the NFL?
Not as fast as I could when I was 28.
Same, brother.
But really what I've seen is like Marvin Jones isn't the deep threat anymore. He can be that ball winner for you. He can still go up and get the football and just be a good, reliable route runner. But Josh Reynolds can be a deep threat, but he is a little bit limited in his game. He's probably better suited as a number 4 receiver. Jameson Williams is going to be so key when he comes back for this offense, and how he comes back, because he really didn't show a lot last year either. So it's really interesting to watch.
3 games last year, he had a long touchdown, and didn't really show much outside of that.
Yeah.
We were hoping for a big bounce back this year, and then lose him for half the season. So
yeah, and then
that absolutely sucks. But hopefully the team is good enough to where Jameson Williams has 5 to 7 games and starts hitting his groove week 16, 17, 18, 19, going into the playoffs, to where it's a different story. But that's best case scenario. When I look at this roster, I almost don't even include Jameson Williams, which would essentially just be an added bonus at this point.
Yeah, I think that's how you have to look at him. But like, he is what can take this offense, in my opinion, this year from because to take the counter punch that the NFL is going to give you, I don't think you're going to be quite what you were at the end of last year. But Jameson Williams is what could put you above what you were last year if he comes back and just hits the ground running. Now, a tight end, I would be more worried about this if they cared more about a tight end as the receiving threat. Sam Laporta is a good receiving threat. He's I really liked him in the draft. One of the most well-rounded tight ends in the draft, but he's still a rookie tight end, and they tend to be really bad. So until proven that he is the anomaly, they tend to not be good. Now they still have Brock Wright, who was a good blocker last year, can catch a little dump off a block to a peel off route, stuff like that. Same with Shane Zylstra. James Mitchell will be interesting to watch because he showed some potential last year in limited time, and I think he's a guy who might end up being the guy at tight end for them this year. And he was a high upside guy coming out of college, so I'm interested to see what he does. And this O-line, Decker Sewell is probably one of the best bookend combos in the league. They have good depth behind him with Jermaine Ifedi and Matt Nelson. Both guys have played a solid amount of snaps in the NFL. And also, if you lose the left tackle, Sewell can jump over to the left. Glasgow is a guard center, but yeah, on the
no, I'm just saying depth wise,
Yeah, I mean,
Signing to be a backup.
I don't know who's going to start. I mean, I think Glasgow might start over Vitae, but Vitae missed all last year with an injury. But you have that depth there where with Glasgow that you're not that worried if Vitae gets hurt. Ragnow, probably the second best center in the NFL after Jason Kelsey, and Jonah Jackson is just an animal
I don't
of a
know.
run blocker.
Creed Humphreys
Oh,
way up
so
there.
Frank Ragnow might be third after Creed. You're right. But yes, this offense, I mean, it's loaded up. They have a lot of talent. The big question for me is, like I
Their
said,
offense,
with Ben Johnson and Jared Goff and how they answer what the league throws at them.
their offense, even down to the quarterback position, might be that they might have the most depth on offense out of any team in the league, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
Because I think Hendon Hooker, once healthy, could step into this offense and if not improve it, keep things status quo.
Yeah. I mean,
day one.
I think Ben Johnson's good enough at his job to do that, but it's also I need to see how he takes the counterpunch from the NFL, who's been figuring out all offseason how to stop this thing and how to effectively, basically, to stop it, you need to stop the run without committing more bodies to stopping the run against arguably the best run blocking O-line in football.
On top of adding, in my opinion, the best vision running back that I've seen the best read blocking running back. I don't know how to.
Well,
what I'm saying about Jahmyr Gibbs is Jahmyr Gibbs reads the field probably better than any college running back I've seen in a long time. So you get a mediocre offensive line in front of a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs to where he doesn't need much and he can see what's happening and hit the hole. And you put an elite line in front of him and he's going to be absolutely filthy.
Well, and here's the thing with it. Like, you're talking about a running back who has really good vision behind an O-line who can execute gap run schemes really well. So you're not just talking 20-yard plays. You're talking home runs. Like, when you're executing gap run schemes.
And ain't nobody catching Jahmyr Gibbs in the open field.
That's what you're going for. Like,
you're home run hunting with an offense where you have Marvin Jones, Josh Reynolds, and Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver, and you're going for home runs in the run game.
Yeah. Now,
that's how good this team is.
One interesting thing, this offense last year it was only like 2 games or something, or like it was a few halves, but so the sample size is small. This offense really struggled when Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't there. So if he goes down, it could tank this thing. I think.
But he was also gone. He was also gone the same time as the Philadelphia running back now. What name?
Swift.
Running back, DeAndre Swift. They were both out at the same time, which sucks. Jamal Williams wasn't the every down running back they needed, and they never found anybody to fill that DeAndre Swift role. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down, and DJ Shark wasn't the guy that they thought he would be. I think Marvin Jones is the high volume reception guy that they could use in the scenario that Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down again, and Josh Reynolds can fill the other role pretty well. And then I think David Montgomery can absolutely take the load of the offense running the ball. Efficient or not behind that offensive line, I think he can get the job done to where they're way more well-equipped this year to deal with a nagging injury or a 3 to 4 week injury to where they weren't last year.
Hey, they also have your boy.
I think they made every right move.
They also have your boy Mo Ibrahim.
Yeah, Muhammad Ibrahim, I love. I actually have drafted him in every single fantasy or dynasty league because there's a very good possibility that he outperforms David Montgomery, and whether or not he gets the snaps this year could force Monty out at the end of the season to where he shares the backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs next year, and then maybe eventually sees more and more action. But yeah, I absolutely love Muhammad Ibrahim in this offense, and if you're in a deep league, he's absolutely worth grabbing and stashing.
So on the D line, and this is the reason why I am like a bit more skeptical on the lines. It really comes down to the D line. Like I like Aleem McNeil a lot. Aleem McNeil lost a pretty good amount of weight the last year or two and has become more pass rusher than run stuffer. Even though he was drafted as more of a run stuffer, like so they feel a little light up the middle. Like Aleem McNeil's lighter now. They're getting Levi Muzarike back this year, 295 pounds. Isaiah Buggs, he's a lighter defensive tackle, not much of a run. They don't have much mass up the middle. And as you look at linebacker too and safety, you find a lot of guys who are just not that good at stopping the run, which is just causes me to pause a little bit. Now, the construction of this D-line is a little weird, like because they drafted Broderick Martin in the 3rd round, who I'll be honest, I watched a ton of D-line for this draft. I couldn't find tape on Broderick Martin, so I had to go off what I found from other people as far as like talking about his tape. From what I heard, he can stuff the run, but there are plays where it's just like, man, that guy shouldn't be getting handled like that. So he's too big to be handled like that. So I do worry that your main run stuffer that you have here is a rookie who was at Western Kentucky last year and was up and down a lot of the time at Western Kentucky, which isn't playing the hardest competition. Their edge room is boom or bust, in my opinion. Like, I mean, Hutchinson's going to be good no matter what. And they have, 4 different guys who've had 8 sack seasons in their career on this list of edge rushers, and they run, 7, 8 deep. But a lot of these guys have missed a lot of time in recent years. Like, you're either counting on Zach Pascal to improve a lot in the offseason, which is possible, or Charles Harris to come back from missing most of last year and be good, or Julian Okwara missed most of last year with injuries, or Romeo Okwara, who's only played 300 snaps in the last 2 seasons. Like, there's a lot of injury risk in this edge room. But there's also a lot of talent. So, like, if stuff goes right here, they could be filthy, disgusting edge rotation. But but there's just a ton of risk with the injury history here too. And James Houston was an animal last year, but he's still only 225 pounds. As an edge rusher, is what he's listed as, at least. He's not going to be playing every down. He's very clearly a specialty player who's playing very specific downs. And I don't know if now that his name's out there and people are going to be planning for him, that sack number might come back down to earth.
So what do you think about these 3 corners they added between Mosley, CJ Gardner-Johnson, and Sutton?
I love the CJ Gardner-Johnson addition. I think his versatility paired with Brian Branch's versatility is going to be a lot of fun on the back end. I mean, Cameron Sutton, I like the addition. I think Cameron Sutton's a better CB2 than CB1, though. And that's kind of where I get tied up here. It's like they added a lot at cornerback. They also lost a lot at cornerback. And I don't feel like they have a A1 cornerback on this team. They had, and
yeah, I think they would have been better suited keeping Jeff Okudah there until they had to move him. But I would have liked to see the scenario where
Mike Hughes.
Yeah, but
I mean, he was a slot
did they
guy,
trade Mike Hughes?
He left in free agency, I believe.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure they traded Okudah.
Yeah, they did trade Okudah.
Okay, so I would have liked to see him actually get beat out and then move him, or play so good where they could have got more for him. I think because I'm pretty sure they got a 4th for him, either a 3rd or 4th. It wasn't.
Yeah,
definitely wasn't a 2nd. But I would have either at that point where he's been trending up the last couple of years after spending a top 5 pick on him, just roll the dice, and if he gets better, you're going to get more for him, or you can move on from one of these other guys, or he's not as good, and maybe instead of a 3rd, you get a 5th. But I mean, it just felt like they jumped ship a little bit too early when they had that much depth at the cornerback position. When he's already on the roster, he's on a rookie deal. Just keep him around for a little bit longer and make him compete, and maybe you get the best out of him, because the best out of Jeff Okuda is the best corner on this team.
Yeah.
If he lives up to potential.
Yeah. And I'm skeptical of Emmanuel Mosley being considered a starter. And maybe Will Harris is the starter. Emmanuel Mosley's really, really good, but he's also missed 37 games in his 5-year career. So like that is and Will Harris is fine depth, but and Jerry Jacobs is okay, but I wish they had more there. Like that's the thought. I think that and the interior D line are the two things that I'm like. I look at this roster and I like a lot of it, but those are the two spots that I'm like I'm worried about those two spots.
I do love the Brian Branch pick at safety too, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he's a nickel corner safety. I mean, they're going to be able to do some fun stuff with Gardner Johnson and him because they're both so versatile in what they can do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot to like on this team. We can go to the schedule now if you want.
Yeah.
All right. So we have the 22nd ranked strength of schedule here. Middle of the season bye. So go to Kansas City week 1. And then you have Seattle coming in, Atlanta coming in, at Green Bay. It's one of the toughest schedules you can ask for to start the season if you have high hopes to win a lot of games in this league.
Yeah. Yeah, that is it's pretty friendly.
Like as much as I like this team, I think this is a 2-2 start for them.
Really? I mean, I'm thinking they're 3-1.
Well, I mean, Seattle's not going to be easy. Atlanta's not going to be easy. I think they win at Green Bay, but it's still at Green Bay at the same time. And I don't think they beat Kansas City week 1.
I feel good about where they're starting. I see 3-1. They're not going to be KC, but they'll beat Seattle, Atlanta, Green Bay.
Okay, so you're higher on them than I am already, and I'm sitting here saying they're the best team in the NFC. But then we'll go to you got Carolina coming in, you go to Tampa Bay, you go to Baltimore, and you go to the Vegas Raiders. This is the 3-1 stretch I see. I think they can handle business with Carolina coming in. Then they can go to Tampa Bay and handle business. I think Baltimore's a toss-up. And then I think they can handle business at home at the Raiders before the bye week.
I see them beating Carolina, beating Tampa, losing to Baltimore, beating the Raiders.
Okay. So I have them at 6-2 or 6-3.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna change Seattle to a toss-up. More I think about it, I jumped the gun on that.
Okay. So I had 2-2, 3-1. So I have 5-3.
I've got 5-2 in a toss-up.
5-2 in a toss-up. And then coming off the bye, we have going to the Chargers, at home to Chicago, at home to Green Bay, at home to Chicago, at home to Green Bay, and then going to New Orleans. I think this is their first 4-0 stretch. I think coming off the bye, they can take care of business against the Chargers. I think Chargers are a good team, but you get the bye week after the Raiders, and I think that's a winnable game. And then I think they beat Chicago, Green Bay, both at home. Q doesn't think so, obviously.
Nope. Mini bye.
And then at New Orleans, I think that's a 4-0 stretch for the boys.
See, I got them. Where did I put? I think I put Chargers as toss-up, loss to Chicago, win against Green Bay, toss-up against New Orleans.
Woo! Okay. So at this point, I have them at 9-3, and you have them at
7.5 and 4.5.
All right, so 9-3 going into the final stretch here of a lot of road games in the season.
Yeah, their schedule is stacked at the back of rough.
So at Chicago, Denver at home, at Minnesota, at Dallas, and then Minnesota at home for the last 5. I think they go 3-2 here, and finish the season 12-5. I don't know how they get 3-2, but I think they get 3 wins between Chicago, Denver, Minnesota, Dallas, and Minnesota. I'm giving them 3 wins there.
Give me 10-7.
10-7 at 9.5. You gotta be licking your chops for that under, because everybody always overestimates every team. If you're giving them 10 wins, that means you have to hammer the under.
No, I'm not hammering the under.
I'm just saying. Good. I'm just as far as betting goes, if you look at a team and you're like they're a 9-win team, like I could see 9 wins for them, or 10 wins in your scenario, and the total's 9.5. You hammer the
No,
under.
I didn't. That's a different thing than what I'm saying though. This is a prediction. This isn't what I could see. I could see 12 wins, but my prediction is 10.
I could see 14 wins, but I think they're 12. But the schedule doesn't break for them that great.
No, it's actually pretty rough the way it all goes down.
I'm taking, if I'm betting this team, I'm taking Super Bowl at plus 2,500. I think they're the best team in the NFC. I think they make the playoffs and they roll.
These values are brutal, man.
Yeah, I mean, plus 2,500. That's not the best odds, but
no, I just mean like for division or for like it's just. I mean, I don't know, like, because I don't like plus 1,000 for NFC champs. I'd like to see that number higher, but like,
take the under, Mr. 10 wins.
It might be the best bet.
Not the best bet, but you can take it. You can lose your money.
I'll
win money with Super Bowl champions at plus 2,500.
I can't take him for Super Bowl.
I might put $10,000 on it.
I think division plus 120. I think that's the best value.
I'll win $250,000 on a $10,000 bet.
Yeah, good
Super Bowl champs.
I'm rooting for you, man.
You wouldn't root for me, the Detroit Lions,
dude.
You might, because you're that good of a friend. if I actually put that much money on it,
I was like, if you had that much money on it, I would absolutely root for it. Shaving points to the moon.
I'll probably put $100 on it at most to win 2,500. But if I did put 10 grand on it, I would hope you would be rooting.
Yeah,
so hard for me.